Hi folks, it is Coach Mo Faul. I'm here for installment 2 of The Crack That Opened Me Up. It's a bit of an inward journey on my breast cancer journey. And today, as promised in yesterday's video, I am going to talk about what happened around those nasty words that no one ever wants to hear. And I'm not talking about "you're fired," because I got those words plenty of times. And as a matter of fact, this whole journey around my breast cancer diagnosis actually started on that day. It was a bright sunny day here in South Florida in April. And my partner had said to me, "Hey, you haven't been for a mammogram in a while." And if you remember from yesterday's discussion, I had a positive mammogram 5 years prior to actually being diagnosed with breast cancer. And that positive mammogram ended up with a no-finding biopsy. So blessings to all of you who may actually have a similar situation. A no-finding biopsy is a great way to go. Hello, Jean. So I eventually, about 18 months after my previous mammogram, had scheduled a mammogram. I took time off from work that morning, and to be honest, I knew something was going on at work. They had been looking into some things. I was, at the time, the chief executive officer of a large physician group in the Miami area, and I had done a great job up until Medicare made some massive cuts, and all of a sudden I was the one to blame. And so things were not really going great at work. So I figured, you know what, things aren't going that well. I can basically step back for a second and get myself taken care of and get a mammogram. So note to self, everyone who's watching this, if you haven't had your mammogram this year or in 12 months, get it scheduled today. Because I have one of the best mammogram stories ever. So I had this mammogram on that fateful April day. And earlier that morning, the chairman of the board, I was CEO, so I reported to the board of directors. The chairman of the board called me and said, "Hey, can you meet me and our corporate attorney at the local Starbucks?" That didn't sound normal. So I said, "Well, sure, of course." So I kind of knew what was happening. And I called my partner and I said, "You know what, could you come down to this shopping center and hang out and be there, because I think I'm getting fired today." She said, "Well, didn't you just have your mammogram?" I said, "Yeah, I had my mammogram earlier, and I think I'm getting fired." So I walk into the Starbucks, having, of course, just had my breasts compressed. If you've had a mammogram, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Breasts compressed. And, you know, I would take some Tylenol after that. I had ample breasts at the time. I asked for a little bit smaller ones when I had my mastectomy. And I wasn't feeling that great, because, you know, when you have a mammogram, it doesn't matter what the results are to a degree the day of and during. It's just dehumanizing. I'm not sure they could do anything about that, but it's dehumanizing. And they try to have, you know, nice spa music and magazines and stuff like that, but the situation is still the same. So I was not in a great mode anyway, and so I'm driving to the Starbucks. My partner Stacy is at the ready to come and meet me afterwards. I get into the Starbucks, and there's the corporate attorney who I had worked with closely on several matters of the group. I had been there for, I believe it was 4 years. And he greets me, and we're like, of course, chewing the fat, shooting the breeze, acting like nothing big is happening. And meanwhile, I could feel this impending doom in the space between he and I. And then in walks the chairman of the board, and it's like, hi. we all knew it was happening. It took about 5 minutes. I got my severance agreement. I was, of course, unhappy, but not super surprised. And I go out into the parking lot. I cry a little bit. I get into my car. I drive home, and I'm stunned. So it took me a while to assimilate that, but a couple of days later, I get a call from the mammogram center that the results were sent to my doctor. So I call my doctor's office, and she asked me to come in. Not good news when they want you to come in. So I go in, and positive mammogram. They need to do some further tests. And I'm just like, what the heck? I get fired, and I get a positive mammogram. Like, what in the world is going on? So I can tell you I spent the next couple of months having repeat mammograms, ultrasounds, and eventually I was in the queue for biopsies. I think they actually do biopsies a lot faster now. This was nine years ago. I did some consulting for a friend of mine while I licked my wounds of being fired from my job, and tried to sort things out of what was my next move. And I did some great work for a friend of mine in the healthcare sector, and within a couple of months, I got a call from a company I knew quite well, and I was super excited about it. They were looking for me. They had tried to reach out at my old job looking for me because I had met with them on several occasions for some joint venture work. See the power of networking, folks. I'm telling you, for those of you who are in my course who have worked with me, I am a huge proponent of networking. So here you go. Already, I have, I'm fired from my job, and a good friend of mine picks me up for consulting work after I was fired. So yay to networking. Second thing is, had I not networked and reached out while I was in that role, I wouldn't have known the executives at this other company. And so they finally tracked me down, and I'm interviewing with them, and they're opening a new position to be a national director for one of their divisions. And one thing after the other, and I get the position. That was August. So between April and August, I had a few biopsies and mammograms and things like that. And so I'm still in the biopsy phase at this point, starting a new job in August of 2008. And I had to tell my new boss, sorry, I got to take an afternoon off. I've got something going on. And he was like, no problem at all. Of course, I'm nervous about it. And around September, they had done, I think, 3 biopsies in one breast and 2 biopsies in another. So I went to like 5 biopsies, still trying to figure out what was going on. And so it kind of dragged out a little bit of time. Eventually, I'm on my way to a lunch meeting for my new job, about 60 days into my job. And I'm driving along the road, and I get a call from my doctor's office. And I'm thinking, maybe this is good news. Maybe now is the time for some good news. I'm rocking in this new job, and I'm feeling great. Maybe now is the time for some good news. Well, it was not good news. I'm driving a car, so this was not like the best way to do this. And she basically told me that I had breast cancer. And she said not only did I have breast cancer in my right breast, but I also had it in my left breast. And let's just say that conversation was kind of like listening to Snoopy's teacher, wah, 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 and kind of like lights out up in the listening zones of the brain. And it was near the end of September. And I basically kind of didn't know what to do. I'm pretty sure I drove home. I don't even remember, to be honest with you. And I was just stunned. So, several months earlier, I had been stunned by losing my job. Was excited about this new job I had started. But here I was now 2 months into a brand new job. And the words I never, ever imagined hearing, you have cancer. and not just in one breast, but in both. So now I'm trying to figure out kind of like how to manage this, because there's no manual for that. There's no manual for, hey, when you get the diagnosis of cancer, here's the things that you need to do. And being the operations executive, the take charge woman that I am, I kind of like wanted a plan. I needed to like get things going. I didn't want to tell anyone. I didn't want to talk about it. I wanted to like keep it to myself, because I like, it seemed like the more I talked about it, the more it was going to be real, and the more I was going to have to deal with it, the emotional reality, the physical reality. And I was overwhelmed by what that meant. Like, do I start going to surgeons? I didn't even know. So I got home, and oddly enough, Christina Applegate had just been on, I think it was the Oprah show, like the day before that. And my partner taped it because, as I mentioned, I was going through some biopsies, and not that we were expecting a positive diagnosis, but just in case it happened, we taped it just to see what she had gone through, because she had just gone through her breast cancer ordeal. So those words stunned the heck out of me, and I told limited people for the first couple of days. I had a business trip planned like October 2nd, which was like 2 days later. And I get on that airplane, and I believe it was Delta, and everything's pink. Breast cancer sponsorship, they had pink ties and kerchiefs. They were selling pink lemonade as a special beverage on the beverage cart. $2 goes to the Breast Cancer Research Foundation. I was just stunned. And I guess because I'm a critical care nurse at my core, I just soldiered on and took care of what needed to be taken care of. I didn't really know what was happening. I haven't mentioned this, but I was in the process of training for the Marine Corps Marathon. My little sister, who had lost a significant amount of weight, asked me to run a marathon with her in January. So we were training. We were like best buds training for the Marine Corps Marathon. The Marine Corps Marathon is in Washington, D.C. Half of my family lives in D.C. It was going to be a big event to celebrate her health, her weight loss. It was going to be all about her. Now we're running this marathon, and I said to the doctors, there's no way in the world I'm not running this marathon. So whatever we've got to do, I'm running this marathon. And so the month of October was just a slew of doctors. It was a slew of decisions. It was just full of dealing with this crushing blow, and just trying to figure out how to handle it, how to organize it, how to live with it, and how to fit a marathon in. So we did go to the marathon. We did run the marathon, my sister and I, and unfortunately for her, it ended up being a little bit more about my breast cancer, and that kind of like a family reunion before that went on. I didn't know how extensive the breast cancer was going to be, and I had eventually chosen, because it was the best option with how many positive biopsies I had in each breast, I eventually had to choose to have a double mastectomy, where they effectively transplanted my belly fat and muscle into my breasts. And good thing for me, I actually had the weight in my belly for them to do that. Women who are too thin have to have implants put in, and it's a little bit more difficult afterwards because of the process of stretching them out after the tissue has been removed. I'm going to talk more tomorrow and Thursday about the actual prep for the surgery and what happened while I was in the hospital. There were some amazing things that happened in the hospital that were just, again, life-changing event after life-changing event. You know, when this whole situation opened up and I heard those words, that you have cancer, it just put me on a tailspin. And obviously just talking about it now, and it was 9 years ago, it brings a lot of emotions to the surface. And I'm telling you this, and I'm not even quite sure how I got through it all, to be honest with you. I'm still not sure. It was probably because of the strength of my partner and my sister, who I was training for the marathon with, and my mom, who eventually, at the time, came down from New York State, where she and my dad were living at the time. They now live closer by in South Florida. But let me tell you a few things here. My inner resolve and my inner strength carried me through this for sure. Relying on others and allowing myself to be seen as vulnerable was a powerful lesson for me. And I talked yesterday about how frustration and some negative, not some, but negative emotions that were kind of caught in my energy body and eventually found their way in my physical body, how I believe that was a big reason why I received the diagnosis of breast cancer eventually. My body was riddled with my own poison, and the cells replicated themselves in a way that we call cancer. I soldiered through, and thank goodness I had that marathon to look forward to, because the marathon was kind of like my beacon of being able to get through it. And I figured that also kind of helped me feel like I was whole and that I was not broken, even though I got the worst news I could ever have received. So when we're faced with something difficult, the best response is to lean in on people who are around you and who love you. Thank goodness I had some very strong people in my life that I could do that with. When I finally sorted things out and had a specific date for my surgery and knew what was going to happen in the physical realm, I had to sit down with my brand new staff, my brand new team at this new job. I was there again, now at this time, it was like mid-October, for not quite 3 months. Technically still my probation period, so how's that for probation period? Hey boss, I have breast cancer, I'm going to need to leave for 4 to 6 weeks to get my breasts removed, and that was not a pleasant conversation. But when I got my team in the big conference room on the day I figured it was probably a good time to tell them what was going on, there they all were sitting there. Again, these are new people to me. I had not been there for 3 months yet. I had to tell them that I had breast cancer and that I was going to be gone for a while, and how much I trusted them to keep things going. And let's just say it this way, there was not a dry eye in the house. It was a difficult conversation to have with my team, but it was one of the most important turning points in my career as a person, as a woman, as an executive, was to be vulnerable and open and strong all at the same time. Because I sat in front of them competent, and I sat in front of them confident in them. And they were a big part of my recovery as well, because I knew that they were counting on me to come back fully, wholly, strong. And I knew that they were knowing that I would. So the power of being vulnerable, here I am, their boss, new executive on the team. If I was all wrapped in my ego, I probably wouldn't have had that conversation. I've actually talked with some women who have had a similar situation, and they didn't tell their team why they were going on medical leave. It's a personal choice, obviously. Some environments are more friendly than others. I worked in healthcare, and I was actually going to be having surgery at one of our client hospitals, So things worked out really well on that note. So everything always works out for me. Those of you who've been working with me know that the everything always works out for me is like my banner for life. It's probably the flag that's going to be planted in the cemetery over my gravestone. Everything always works out for me. Had I not gotten that new job and started working for that company, I wouldn't have been so well cared for in the hospital that I was being taken care of in. I wouldn't have known some of the doctors who were taking care of me so well. I wouldn't have felt so embraced. Because let me tell you, the days leading up to the diagnosis and my surgery, when I had biopsy after biopsy, and tomorrow I'm going to tell you a little bit about one of the most bizarre preoperative procedures I had to have. I was held and embraced because of this new job I had, and the employer was awesome, and my team was awesome, and they helped carry me through it in every single way possible. And it was that moment of vulnerability with my team when I told them what was going on, and I told them that I was going to be gone for a while, and the reason why. That moment of vulnerability was a turning point in my life, because I no longer had to be this strong executive woman who wasn't human anymore. I mean, I was given permission by cancer to be human. And my humanness was overflowing, and I made a vow to them and to myself that I would continue to be that woman when I came back. And I'll talk about my recovery and how I came back to work on Friday. What I would like to hopefully inspire you with is this. When you're faced with a challenge, talking about it and opening up about it and being you through it is true strength. And I talk to women all day long, all week long, about coming forward with your story and coming forward with your vulnerability. And you know what? It's not easy. It's not natural for us to be vulnerable. As a matter of fact, it's just the opposite. Primitive brain self wants to protect ourselves from any vulnerability. And so we have to override that primitive fear. We have to have enough passion about our life and our purpose here on earth to override our own personal fear and our own personal attacks. Cancer was literally attacking me. And I had to do something about it. And I had family and friends and coworkers that I had to either rally around me or shut them away from me. And I chose the rally. I chose the rally because of who I am. But I'm so glad I chose the rally, because it defined for good who I am and what I was all about. And so one of the reasons why I'm a career coach now, and I'm helping other women ascend after being brought down or underemployed or I talk about job trauma all the time. When we are kicked in the gut, we need other strong people around us to lift us up, and for ourselves to be seen by us, by our own self, as strong and powerful and capable. We are not defined by whether we're going to have difficulties in life, because it is part of living in this physical planet. We are literally defined by how those cracking open moments can keep us reminded of who we are. We are not the moment. We are the person, we are the soul who lives to tell about it. Or in many cases of women who got the same news I got, they didn't live to tell about it. But you know what? They were courageous in their journey. And I talked yesterday about a good friend of mine who did not make it out of this journey. But she was defined by her journey not by the cancer. And I talk to women all the time who are in job trauma, personal trauma, divorces, horrible marriages, whatever it might be, childhood trauma. We are opened up by what happens. It is not who we are, but it is a gateway to find out who we are. When we are cracked open, yes, our hearts may break, but our soul emerges more powerfully, more richly. We have more to offer life. So as difficult as it is to be going through something painful, every time something painful happens, it doesn't happen to us as a victim. It happens for our growth. It happens for our soul to emerge stronger and bigger. And I will tell you that 9 years ago, at just about this time of the year, maybe even to this day, knowing how the universe tends to work these things out, I stood in front of my team at work and was the most vulnerable I could possibly be. Not because I had a goal to be vulnerable, but because I knew that my sharing and opening with them was going to make us better as a team. And there's a time when we have a story and we have an event in our lives that we share it with others, that we become actually the strong one telling the story. It's the strange thing about being diagnosed with cancer. Note to self, tomorrow I bring Kleenex to the Facebook Live. So the moral of today, please, is there will be diagnoses. There will be 2x4s that hit you. There will be punches in the gut. There will be bad bosses. There will be bad spouses. There will be things that hurt us. Your vulnerability and allowing yourself to be broken open, to be cracked open, and to emerge as more you is exactly what it's there for. It's there for you to emerge as more you. That's what your soul wants. Your soul wants to keep opening up and shining. It's what my soul wants for you. It's what all the souls on the planet want for themselves as well. And when we peel back the bodies, the labels, all of that, we're one big unified field. So the more you open yourself up, the better the unified field is, the better the planet is. And that's the reason why I'm telling this story, is because, first of all, I think I finally have the strength to tell it 9 years later, but also because I believe that in sharing our stories, we not only free ourselves from their bondage, but we also help others emerge from theirs. And so my hope for you today is for you to let go. I talked about this yesterday. Let go a little bit more of the victim, of whatever it is that you might be feeling victim about. We all have something. And to emerge more you. Emerge more of who you are. Show up bigger because of it. Show up more expressive. Show up more determined. Show up more authentic. Show up more willing to take risks. Show up more willing to just show who you are and say, I'm here for a reason. Let that crack open you up to your dreams and to the real power of what you're here for. Because that's what it's all about. It's about cracking you open. You know, I didn't listen to a lot of the messages before the breast cancer. I was a little bit too dunce and just moving along in my career. This is what I needed, and this is what happened. And it was 9 years ago that I was cracked open, and I heard those words that I never expected to hear, and they've changed me forever. Forever. And possibly even helped me evolve as a soul, and definitely helped me be where I am today, where I can help inspire other women and men on their journeys in life and career. tomorrow I'm going to talk about the marathon and the time right around the surgery, up to and including the day of the surgery. And I'm going to give you that little horrible event that I had to go through the day before surgery. So if you can tune in tomorrow, again, I'm going to look at my calendar tomorrow and see what time might work. Probably do it around noon tomorrow as well. I'm just going to send blessings for you and thank you for joining me today. This is actually the space I meditate in the morning, and I just feel comfortable being here and being able to open up. So thank you for joining me today, and I will see you tomorrow. We'll talk more about my journey, and please feel free to ask me questions on this post. And I'm an open book on this because I want it to help inspire others. So God bless your day. And for those of you who work with me under my Kick-Ass course, I'll see you guys tonight. And hey, if you want to go somewhere in your life, I'd love to help you out, because I've certainly been through enough bumpy roads to lift just about anyone past theirs. Okay. See you tomorrow, and God bless your evening, your afternoon, and wherever you are. Thanks a lot for joining me today. Talk to you later.